Hi class, this is William again. As you can see from your grade sheet for both your informative and your persuasive speech, that your grade is going to be about 25% based on the content of the speech and 75% based on delivery. Now there are 9 elements of delivery that you're going to be graded on, and they're the same elements for both speeches. 5 elements are in vocal delivery, 4 elements are in physical delivery. In this video, I want to talk to you about vocal delivery. This is the use of our voice to present the message to the audience. Your voice plays 4 important roles in communication. The first one is we use our voice to produce words. In other words, we say words. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this video about that. I think we're all pretty familiar with that role. But saying words is actually not the most important role your voice plays in communication. The most important one is something called paralinguistics. Now, paralinguistics is probably a new term for many of you, but the elements probably are not. For example, the word linguistics, the root word. Linguistics means language, and para means side by side, kind of parallel. So, when we are saying words to somebody, our voice is sending messages parallel or side by side with the language. This is very important. The reason for that is any time our paralinguistics and our words do not match, your audience will tend to accept the paralinguistics rather than the words. Now, what this basically means is that we are communicating messages through things like tone of voice. The third main role that your voice plays in communication is that your voice has a powerful psychological effect on others. Now, many of you probably have anecdotal evidence of this. Somebody whose voice just kind of causes your blood pressure to go up. Maybe they speak with a whiny voice or a squeaky voice. They talk too loud, they talk too quiet. Whatever it is, there's just something about the sound of their voice that you find annoying. This puts you in a negative mindset just as you're evaluating their ideas. Conversely, there are others whose voice puts you in a very positive state of mind. You could listen to them speak about almost any topic for an hour. People like James Earl Jones, who did the voice for Darth Vader in the Star Wars movies, and for CNN, This is CNN. People who are able to create that very positive psychological effect on their audience puts them in a positive state of mind just as they're evaluating their ideas. Finally, your voice actually has a strong psychological effect on you. Research has suggested that when you speak with a more confident, secure voice, you actually become more confident. If you speak with a very timid or insecure voice, it can actually cause you to become less confident and your anxiety to rise. So those are the 4 important roles that your voice plays in communication. The next thing I want to talk to you about are the 5 elements of vocal delivery. These are the 5 elements that you're going to be graded on in both your informative as well as your persuasive speech. Please note that, as indicated on the grade sheet, these elements are not of equal importance to one another. So the first one is enunciation. Enunciation is pronouncing the words correctly and clearly. This is very important in communication. Your goal is to make it as easy as you possibly can for your audience to listen. Poor enunciation requires the audience to expend more energy to try to understand what you're saying. The most common mistake that people make in enunciation is failing to open their mouth enough when they speak. So they just kind of mumble like this. Now, they probably think this is okay because when they talk to their friends, they talk like this, and their friends understand them just fine. But when you're only talking to 1 or 2 friends, there's not a lot of ears absorbing the sound. When you're speaking to an audience, it becomes far more challenging. So you want to open your mouth and pronounce the words very clearly. The next common mistake that people make in enunciation is they add sounds to words that do not belong. The most common sound that people erringly add to a word is the R sound. For example, they might mention the state of Washington, or wash the dishes. The problem with this is our ears are not attuned to that sound being added to the word, and as a result, it causes an internal distraction. The second most, excuse me, the second element of delivery, these are not the order of importance. The second one is projection. Now, a lot of people think projection is talk loud enough for everybody to hear. In actuality, projection is speak at a volume so that your audience can comfortably listen. See, talking too loud is actually just as big of a problem as talking too quietly. Either of them cause the audience to think about your volume, and any attention they're paying to your volume is attention they're not paying to your speech. You want your volume to disappear. If the audience is not paying attention to your volume, you're doing projection correctly. The next element of vocal delivery is vocal variety. Now, a major advantage that speakers have over writers in terms of communicating is this wonderful instrument we call the human voice. We want to vary that voice to not only increase engagement with the audience, but also to help us convey meaning through things like paralinguistics. Now, here I mentioned two specific aspects of how we want to vary our voice. First is through tone or pitch. This refers to how high or how low you talk. Now, the average untrained adult voice has a range of 5 notes. That means you can speak at 5 different notes with virtually no strain on your voice and no risk of your voice cracking. I want you to try to utilize that 5-note range to vary your pitch or tone throughout your speech. Now, this does not mean I want the first 5 notes to be a scale and monotone the rest of the way. I want you to vary throughout. This also does not mean that I'm going to be in the back counting notes. So you probably could accomplish a good vocal variety and tone with using 3 notes. I say that I would like you to try to expand that to around 5 notes merely because I used to say just don't be monotone, and that ended up causing people to pick 2 notes and ping pong back and forth. And that was just as distracting as a monotone voice. The second way that I want you to vary your voice is through rhythm. Rhythm refers to your rate or how fast you talk, as well as your pausing. If you only take notes during one part of this video, please have it be this. Variation of rhythm is to spoken word what punctuation is to written word. That's so important, I want to repeat it, so please again get this. That variation of rhythm is to spoken word what punctuation is to written word. So everything you know about the importance of punctuation in writing, how it helps us convey the meaning of our message, please understand that the exact same thing applies to varying our rhythm in speech. If you give a 5-minute speech and there's no variation of rhythm at all, that would be like turning in a 4-page essay with no grammar or punctuation. It becomes very, very difficult to understand. But actually, no variation in speech is worse than the no punctuation paper, because the no punctuation paper allows the reader to be able to go through it again and try to piece together where the punctuation would have been. But when you're listening to a speech, you only get it once. And as a result, you don't have the opportunity to go through and correct their lack of variation. This ends up leading the audience to have what we refer to as the fallacy of competence. Our brain knows that it understood the words and it can pull out a few of the topics, so therefore it concludes that it must have understood the message. An example of the fallacy of competence happens for many of us in math class. A math teacher is writing on the board and goes through how to do a problem. And as you listen to the math teacher explain it, you kind of feel like you understand how to do it. But then you're told to do a problem, and suddenly you look at it and you realize you didn't understand it like you thought you did. Well, after a speech, we rarely get the opportunity to be tested to find out if we understood, but that fallacy of competence is still every bit as real. The fourth element is a fluid or smooth delivery. With this, we want to cut out things like audible pauses. Audible pauses, sometimes referred to as filler words, as like, you know. We want to reduce those. Another aspect of the fluid smooth delivery is we want to avoid chasing the clock. Chasing the clock happens when maybe we've got 45 seconds left and we don't have much to say, so we start to talk really, really slowly. And now we're just really trying to take 45 seconds to speak 10 seconds of the speech. I would rather you just finish the speech. So the fluid smooth delivery is I want you to stay conversational. Talk to us. Be professional. Don't get into being too casual, but still having nice fluid smooth delivery. Finally, the fifth element is energy. This is by far the most important element of vocal delivery. With energy, it's simply a sense of enthusiasm. If you come across like you're very bored with your speech or bored with the topic, the audience will be more likely to be bored with the topic as well. Now, enthusiasm and energy doesn't make the topic more interesting. Believe me, I wish that it did. But being real low energy can take interest away. I have a personal example of this. There was a time that I really enjoyed history. I still enjoy reading about it and learning about it. But I actually considered being a history major at one time. And I had a history teacher, a super nice guy. I really liked him, but he was very low energy. And some of you might have a low energy teacher yourself. This is my impersonation of him. The root cause of the American Revolution was the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War was a conflict between the French and their Native American allies against the British and their German allies. The Native American tribes believed that the French would win the war because they won the first two battles. What they failed to realize is that the French had beaten the Americans. The British and the Germans hadn't arrived yet. Okay, imagine listening to that for 2 hours. As interested as I was in history, it was hard to stay engaged. So, these are the first 5 elements of delivery. These are the vocal elements that you're going to be graded on. Please remember these are not in the order of importance, and they're not of equal importance. If I were to place them in order of importance, I would put energy by far the most important. After that, enunciation and projection are approximately tied. And then the fluid smooth delivery and vocal variety are approximately tied. Okay. So, if you haven't already, please now watch the video on physical delivery, and that will present you with the other 4 elements of delivery. Thank you very much.